Hey, this is Ralph, and in this video I want to do a couple things. I want to count some block elements like they're a numbered list, and then I also want to use text shadow as content. So I've got this page set up, and it's not very exciting looking, certainly. I've got these tiny little pieces of content on here. But basically, I've got a section here classified as key steps. This contains 4 articles. Each article has its own class on it with a generic heading 2 and a generic paragraph. And I want to count these like they are a numbered list. I'm going to move up to the style section of my page, and I'm going to start off by classifying or by styling the key steps here. Now my key steps, that's basically my big group of 4. It's this big section here, and the key steps are going to be display flex, and I'm going to do a flex flow of row wrap. I ultimately want to get these key steps in a nice little grouping of 4, basically 2 across, which means I'm going to need to take my step item, and I can't remember, did I call them? Yep, step item singular. Notice that's a class there. So I'm going to take that step item, and if I do something like flex 50%, and that should be enough to see that, yeah, okay, I've got these things grouped into 4. They're a little bit tough to see, so let's go ahead and do a few other things here. I'm going to go ahead and set the font size to 2 rems, root M's. And I'm going to do some crazy padding on here too. I'm going to do a padding of 1 M on the top, 1 M on the right, 1 M on the bottom, and 4 M's, there it is, 4 M's on the left. And that's going to give me some space, ultimately, to have my numbers display right over here on the left of each of those portions. All right, feeling pretty good about that. Now, we're going to start doing something a little bit crazy with these step items. I'm going to do a counter increment, and basically I want to count the article tags, because the articles are what make up the parts of this section, and that's what I ultimately want to count, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to be doing a counter increment of the articles, and I'll have these display as a list item. There we go. Let's see if that does anything for me. Nothing much yet. I can see that it got some bullets on there, so that's kind of interesting, but that's just the displayed list item effect. Now, let's go to .step item : marker. I want to change how those markers look, those counter items, for my what's turning out to be a list. And I'm going to do a content counter and then article, because that's what I want to use as my counting number. And now you can see, you can't see my little 1, 2 on the left, but you can see the 1 and the 3, but you can see the 2 and the 4 for these on the right, because they're pushed all the way over, kind of a default nature of them being list numbers. Now that we can see those on there, font weight, bold, and let's go ahead and do font size, I don't know, 3 M's? Yeah, it should be nice and big. Cool, looking pretty good there. I'm going to go ahead and style these heading 2. So I'm going to take a little side trip here. Step item space H2. Okay, feeling pretty good about that. So I really want to emphasize these numbers, and obviously I still need to solve the problem with my numbers 1 and 3 over there on the left. I'm going to go back to my markers, and I'm going to set their color so that we can at least see them at first to coral. Okay, feel pretty good about that. I'm going to use text shadow to manipulate where it looks like I'm seeing these numbers. So watch this. I'll do a text shadow, and I'm going to do something like 0.8 M's. That's to the right of the number. And then I'll do 0.4 M's below the number. I'll do coral again. Actually, let's do, just so it's clear, 0 pixels of blur on that shadow, and then I'll do the color coral. Now, just by putting this text shadow on there, you're going to see, there's the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4, which means I don't even really need to see those original numbers. So if I go back to my original marker and change the color from coral to transparent, we won't see the original numbers and we're only going to see the shadows. In fact, I could raise these up instead of the, I'll do a 0M for down, and we can see where those numbers are showing up. Yeah, I'll play around with that a little bit. I'll just fine tune it. 0.2 M's. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so what if we do want to put a shadow effect on those values, numbers? Well, we can use two shadows to get the impression of a shadow on the first number. So I can do a comma, and then I'll do something like 0.85 M's, 0.25 M's, put a little bit of blur on this one, 2 pixels, and we'll also do a dark color, 222, a dark gray. So I've got two shadows on the original numbers, but this is going to look like I've got a shadow on the shadow. And there we go. So there's our count, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now what's great about this is if we come down here, and let's say I throw on 2 more articles, well, they're going to get renumbered, 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we've got 5 and 6. And because we're doing this class step item, well, we can do this in other situations too. So maybe I had another section down here, class equals another, which I'm not going to do anything with. There's 1 and there's 2. There we go. Those are being listed as 1 and 2. Now remember, they're not side by side because I don't have a display flex on them in order to create them side by side, but we can start to count other items in that same way. We are using counter increment in order to count things other than numbers. In this case, I'm counting article elements. And then I'm using a little shadow trick in order to make the shadows display kind of like they're the main content. Thanks for hanging out with me.